When you think about the Old West, you probably picture dusty cowboys and epic gunfights, right? Well, let me tell you about an outlaw who breaks every single one of those rules. He was a mastermind who was also a gentleman, a highwayman who never even rode a horse, and a robber who left behind poetry. This is the truly strange and captivating story of Black Bart.
So get this little poem, this was left at the scene of a robbery. It's witty, it's defiant, and look at the signature, Black Bart the Poet. This wasn't just a crime. It was a performance. It was a statement from a guy who clearly saw himself as more than just a common thief, and it perfectly captures the contradictions that would make him a legend.
All right, so who was this poetic bandit? Well, the man behind that flour sack mask was living a remarkable double life. Out in the rugged hills of Northern California, sure, he was the notorious Black Bart. But back in the bustling city of San Francisco, he was known by a very different and very, very respectable name. And here's the crazy part. In the city, he was Charles Bolton, a Civil War veteran, always impeccably dressed, unfailingly polite. His neighbors just knew him as this successful mining engineer. But the second he got out on those lonely roads, he transformed. He became Black Bart, a robber with a serious grudge against the Wells Fargo company, who he felt had wronged him years before. You know, every great criminal has their signature, right? Their modus operandi. Well, Black Bart's was so unique, so incredibly effective, that it absolutely baffled law enforcement and kind of turned him into a folk hero. He basically turned stagecoach robbery into an art form that was all about brains, not bullets. Okay, so for 8 straight years, Black Bart was Wells Fargo's biggest nightmare. And the wildest part, he did it all without ever getting on a horse. I mean, how do you even pull that off in the Old West? Well, the secret to his long reign wasn't speed, but a super meticulous strategy mixed with some serious physical endurance. His method was just genius. Okay, so step 1, the ambush. He'd pick a really steep hill, a spot where the stagecoach had no choice but to slow to a crawl. Step 2, the demand. He'd pop out with his shotgun, but to make it look like he had a whole gang, he'd prop sticks in the bushes to look like extra rifles and yell something like, "If he makes a move, give him a volley, boys." Step 3, the code. He was always polite, never hurt or robbed the passengers. He was only there for the Wells Fargo box. And finally, step 4, the escape. He would just melt into the backcountry on foot, easily outwalking any mounted posse sent after him. And you know what? This crazy method of his, it worked. It worked again and again and again. Between 1875 and 1883, this one man, on foot, successfully robbed at least 28 Wells Fargo stagecoaches. It's still one of the most successful and, frankly, audacious solo crime spree in the entire history of the American West. But you know how these stories go. Even the most careful plans, the most incredible winning streaks, they can all come undone because of one tiny little mistake. After 8 years of flawless robberies, Black Bart's career came to a sudden end because of one tiny, overlooked detail. It all came crashing down on a place called Funk Hill. Maybe he was feeling a bit nostalgic, a little cocky, because he actually chose the site of his very first robbery for his 29th. But this time, his luck ran out. There was a 19-year-old passenger on board with a hunting rifle. As Bart made his escape, the young man fired, hitting him in the hand and forcing him to drop a crucial piece of evidence in his rush to get away. And this was the clue that unraveled everything. It wasn't a gun, it wasn't a witness description, it was a simple laundry mark stamped right in the corner of the handkerchief he dropped. A surprisingly modern solution to an Old West crime. So Wells Fargo's top detective, a guy named James Hume, took this one tiny clue and just ran with it. His team went to every single laundry service in San Francisco, all 91 of them. And finally, they found it, a match. The mark FX07 belonged to a polite, well-dressed mining engineer living in a boarding house, a Mr. Charles Bolton. So the detectives lured him to their office, pretending they wanted to talk about a mining deal. When they finally confronted him, Boles was a gentleman to the very end. He saw the evidence, threw up his hands, and said, "Gentlemen, I pass." Like it was a card game. He only confessed to that final robbery and got 6 years in San Quentin, where, of course, he was apparently a model prisoner.
But the story doesn't end there. After he's released from prison, the tale of Black Bart takes its final, most baffling turn. He swore to reporters that his life of crime was over, but the man who had been in the spotlight for 8 years was about to perform his greatest disappearing act.
Just over a month after walking out of San Quentin, Charles Boles checked out of a hotel in Visalia, California. And then, nothing. He stepped out of that hotel and just walked right out of the pages of history. Forever. Of course, the void he left was immediately filled with theories. Did he try one last robbery and get killed? Did he just settle down under a new name? Some people say he went all the way to Japan. Others say a family in Texas claims him as an ancestor. But one of the most interesting theories is that he pulled off 3 final robberies, took the money, and bought a big ranch out in Arizona or New Mexico, finally living out his days in peace. The truth is, we simply don't know. And that brings us to a really fascinating question. We have countless movies about Billy the Kid and Jesse James, so why not Black Bart? And the answer might just be that he doesn't fit the mold. He wasn't a cowboy. He wasn't a gunslinger. He was a polite gentleman from the city who walked to his crimes and caught by a laundry receipt. His story is almost too strange, too sophisticated for the simple story of the Wild West. In the end, maybe that's what makes his stories so captivating. He was a complete contradiction, a polite thief, a bandit who walked, a criminal who wrote poetry. And his final vanishing act? Well, it ensures his legend remains just like he lived it, shrouded in mystery, forever defying our expectations of what an Old West outlaw was supposed to be.